hostile territory unprepared, namely in unarmored vehicles and without automatic weapons or a rear gunner. Blackwater appealed the case unsuccessfully all the way to the Supreme Court, but this week, a federal judge ordered the lawsuit to be decided behind closed doors in arbitration. This will allow Blackwater to avoid public examination of its practices in Iraq, and the outcome of the arbitration will be confidential. The news was first reported by the Virginian pilot. The paper reports one of the three arbitrators could be William Webster, who served as head of the FBI and CIA under President Reagan, and has personal and business ties to several Blackwater lawyers. Bill Sizemore is an investigative reporter with the Virginian pilot. He was a finalist for the 2006 Pulitzer Prize in explanatory reporting for his coverage of Blackwater. He joins me from Norfolk, Virginia. Here in our Firehouse studio, Jeremy Scahill, author of the New York Times bestseller Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. Jeremy's a Puffin Foundation Writing Fellow at the Nation Institute and correspondent for Democracy Now! He testified 2 weeks ago before the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense at a hearing on defense contracting. We invited Blackwater USA on the program, but they did not respond to our request. Bill Sizemore, let's begin with you. Explain exactly what has happened to the Blackwater lawsuit.
Well, this is a pretty major development, Amy. It's 2.5 years now since this lawsuit was filed. Blackwater has been fighting it every step of the way. They even hired Ken Starr, the Clinton prosecutor, to argue before the Supreme Court. They were trying to get it moved from state court to federal court. They failed in that effort, but now they appear to have found another way to derail this case. This federal judge in North Carolina last week ruled that the lawsuit is barred by the contract that these 4 men signed with Blackwater. This is an 18-page document in which they gave up all kinds of rights, including the right to sue Blackwater. The contract provides that in the event of any dispute with Blackwater, they have to go to arbitration, which is, of course, a non-judicial process. It has a number of advantages for Blackwater. There is no right to a trial by jury. The verdict is final and binding. There's no appeal. There's no right to discovery, which means the plaintiffs don't have the same access to internal documents, Blackwater documents, and not least, as you mentioned, it all goes on behind closed doors. The proceedings are confidential. The outcome is confidential. Actually, this is the reason that this process is chosen in a lot of cases, to keep the proceedings private.
Jeremy Scahill, the significance of this.
Well, this is not just a case about one company, and it's not just a case about this lawsuit. We have to remember that when those 4 men were killed in Fallujah, dragged through the streets, strung up from a bridge, the Bush administration responded by laying siege to the Iraqi city of Fallujah, carrying out some incredible 37,000 airstrikes. Hundreds of people were killed. Thousands were displaced from their homes. In many ways, it was the week that the war turned and that the anti-occupation resistance exploded. And so examining this incident that would prove so definitive in the course of the Iraq War becomes much greater than just the lawsuit itself. And what always has been at the center of this case is what was the truth of the matter? What happened there? This wasn't a retaliatory strike against these 4 families. They spent months trying to get Blackwater to be straight with them on how their loved ones ended up in the city of Fallujah, a place where the U.S. military wouldn't even go, not to mention without an armored vehicle and heavy backup. And the families say that they filed the lawsuit only after Blackwater refused to be transparent with them. I mean, what has happened is that since this lawsuit was filed in January of 2005, Blackwater has enlisted a high-power team of very well-connected lawyers. Originally, the lawyer on the case was Fred Fielding, who now is President Bush's White House counsel. As Bill said, more recently it's been Ken Starr. And what's interesting is that Blackwater hasn't made much of disputing the specific allegations of the lawsuit. Instead, they've sort of taken a legal tactic that says, we can't be sued. Blackwater's made this argument that the company, because it's a part of the U.S. total force, the U.S. war machine, should be entitled to the same immunity from civilian litigation for wrongful death enjoyed by the U.S. military. At the same time, Blackwater's high-powered lobbyists and PR specialists from, at the time, it was the Alexander Strategy Group, the Republican lobbying firm founded and staffed by former senior staffers of Tom DeLay, they were in the media waxing poetic about how it would be inappropriate to apply the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the court-martial system, to Blackwater operatives because they're civilians. And so now Blackwater failed to get the case removed from state court, where it was originally brought, and into federal court. They failed to get it thrown out entirely. They twice were rejected by the Supreme Court, and so now they go to a senior judge who doesn't even sit 5 days a week, I understand, in the Northern District of North Carolina, and they get him to order the case into arbitration. This really appears to be some incredible 11th-hour legal maneuvering on the part of Blackwater's very high-powered legal team, and it raises serious questions about jurisdictional issues. I mean, a federal judge going in and snatching a case out of state court and sending it into arbitration raises a lot of serious questions. The other thing that hasn't been reported on this is that the family's lawyers have been trying to depose a number of witnesses who worked for Blackwater that they believe will be able to bring forward information that will show that there are questionable activities that took place in the days leading up to those 4 men being killed in Fallujah. Last Christmas, Blackwater successfully appealed to the U.S. attorney to effectively step in and block a deposition of a former Blackwater manager. And the reason that Blackwater was able to do that is they said that it could potentially jeopardize national security, that this former Blackwater employee potentially was in possession of information that, if it was revealed publicly, could damage the national security of the United States. Well, just as this judge was ordering it into arbitration, the U.S. Army and the U.S. District Attorney determined that wasn't the case, and so the deposition theoretically could have gone forward. Now, as Bill said, it's been removed to a venue where such depositions won't take place. And the other thing that we have to say here is that Congress has been investigating this issue, and when Henry Waxman asked Blackwater's lawyer, Andy Howell, to hand over some key documents, Andy Howell sort of stuttered on it and said the company would have to get back to him. If this case goes into arbitration, the odds are overwhelmingly that it will not be open to the public, that a lot of the materials that would come out on this crucial incident will